Hey everyone, Chris G here. Welcome back at the Hard Hat the CEO. And today I got a guest all the way from Vancouver, Canada. And we're going to talk about blind spots, things that you don't see coming, which are important for all kinds of projects and business and so forth. So he's wrote a book about that, and we're going to talk about some other things that he does. Please help me welcome Brady Dahmer.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. Pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to kind of get in and share some experience with your audience. And yeah, thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Give us a little background before we go into the blind spots, if you would.
Absolutely, absolutely. I basically I've worked in marketing and branding for like the last over 25 years now, and this is kind of where the genesis of the books comes from. But I started out again going to school for it, worked in the agency world, like worked for other people, and then about 20 years ago, as most entrepreneurs do, they get the itch, they need to go out on their own, and so 20 years ago I branched out and sort of started small and opened up my own sort of private agency, and then from there kept on growing it till about 15 employees. So that's kind of, yeah, that's where it was. And then COVID hit and a bunch of other things, and we kind of scaled back. But it also gave me some space to kind of readjust and realign, and like as we are kind of talking before, kind of work on stuff that kind of matters, that you're interested in. And as you sort of work on and in businesses, sometimes you kind of lose track of like what you're passionate about and what you love to do. And this book is a little bit of an extension of one of the things I kind of love to do, which is mentoring and education and kind of giving back to the community, kind of what I've learned. So that's kind of that's where I've been. So we've worked on all kinds of branding and marketing projects, big and small. Yeah, you name it, we've done it, we've worked in it. So yeah.
So did you write your book before or after the 2020 plague?
I tell you the truth, right in the middle of it.
No
So
kidding, yeah.
yeah, it was
What else were you going to do, right?
exactly. Well, it was serendipitous that within like a couple months in over the summer, I got two calls from one from a past client, one from an old friend of mine, and my old friend called in a very sort of angry and upset state, saying that someone had used some illustrations that she had kind of gotten for a book, and wondered what to do about this. And I asked her, essentially, where's your contract? What's your licensing, for these images, which in our industry, every kind of external contractor, like an illustrator, a photographer, videographer, will do stuff, but you kind of, unless you get rights for it, just like any other industry, like the music or video industry, unless you've got
Hmm.
rights for it, and you don't really own the work outright, they still own it. So my client sort of said, hey, my friend said, hey, these images are being shown up on Etsy. What can I do? I'm like, well, where's your agreement? And she didn't have one. So, and then within that same week, I'm sure a lot of people can kind of feel this, is that another friend of mine called, and their designer that they would work with for the last 5 years, to me, it baffles me, but their designer's laptop crashed and they lost all their files. That's all of their, like, the thousands of hours of just work, but also things like all the images, all the other things, all the branding, all of that stuff that really takes time to do and create. But this
And
person
build it
had
up,
definitely
yeah.
had lost all of that. And so I say, well, where's your version of it? And they're like, we don't have it. So, and in that, all of a sudden the light bulb went off, and from that I was like, okay, you know what, there's a lot of things that we learn the hard way in business. And so in that, I started to accumulate, in my mind, all those kind of things I did wrong, in the startup of my business and working with clients, all those things. And then I went out and I started asking all of my other clients, all my friends, and said, hey, what has been a really, like, what's been a bad project experience for you? Tell me, what's gone wrong, and how can, what did you do? And I got to tell you, Chris, the list kept on getting longer and longer and longer, because it's stuff that we sometimes we kind of wish we kind of learned in school, and knew. But with everybody, the scenario is a little different, but there was some commonalities. And so I ended up writing this book that was literally the book that I wish I had read when I started and when I was working, like the first 5 years of working in marketing and working with clients. I wish I had this as my little as my handbook, as my little pocketbook next to me, because it would have been, saved me a lot of time and effort and energy in working with clients and dealing with sort of not just legal things, but how to work a project properly with the right questions to ask. Because even as entrepreneurs, and small businesses, like we don't know what we don't know. Hence, what questions, we don't know what to ask. So hence, that leads to assumptions and misunderstandings. And we've all been there when there's been those sort of those mess ups. And everybody's got their own story. And this was a collection of all of those. So I really wanted to kind of give the community something that it could a checklist, in other words, of things that they should look out for to make their their entrepreneurial, their small business, their marketing projects that much more optimized, and not from time but also from budget and things like that. So yeah.
Well, can you tell me a story?
um
A story that we need to avoid?
yeah, well, here's
Without,
maybe one of those cautionary tales too, is make
sure.
sure when you have a relationship with somebody. For instance, like I did this beautiful multi-page brochure, and there was probably over 10,000 of these brochures printed.
Hmm.
But one of the things that kind of happened, and I think a lot of us kind of fall into this, is that when you have a relationship and when you have a maybe a conversational, a friend relationship with a contractor, and when I say contractor, that whether that be the marketing agency or anybody you hire, essentially, if you can kind of have a friendly relationship with them, you still have to make sure that a lot of what you're dealing is the business side of it. It still stays business, and it is part of as kind of friendly as it is. You still have to make sure like the contractual things are in there, that you get sign off on certain things, like the certain, I want to say legal steps, but the ways that you can
Well,
protect yourselves are there, right?
who's responsible for what? And
100%. Yeah, 100%. And for me, one of my personal stories, and it hurt bad, I gotta say, for a really long time, is that we were with this client. We were on a very friendly, because we were working fast. It was a really great project. We were working fast and having a lot of fun doing it. But I made the key misstep of not getting that final email approval from them. And so when I talked to them over the phone, I'm like, "Hey, is everything good?" And they're like, "Yeah, everything's good. Let's go." I did not get that in writing from them. And in writing is essentially you have a legal leg, to stand on. And I did not get that. When we sent this brochure to print, I did not get that approved in writing. And that's to say,
okay.
when it went, we got it back, and then literally an hour after it got delivered to the client, I got a call and being like, "Hey, by the way, the phone number is wrong on the back of this brochure."
Hmm.
Yeah. And that hurt. And we're talking, this was a $12,000 print run. And the printer was going to give me a deal to reprint it for
Right.
a little over $7,000. So yeah, for me, that was a $7,000 misstep, when what would have taken literally 30 seconds to do cost me $7,000 in the end. And it was just because you didn't, those little things we don't think about. We don't kind of, you know, it's like you have to take that all the way. You have to finish it to the very end, of like make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, kind of thing, all the way through it, no matter how friendly you are with someone. Because again, the client was like, "Hey, this is your responsibility. This is your project," and it was a mess up on my end because I did not approve it on the end of it. So they pushed it back to me because I didn't get that final sign off. I didn't push him for that, and that was kind of, and also too, it soured the relationship too, because that was really tough for me, because they had seen it, for like last 2 weeks, kind of thing. So
Right.
in that, and it wasn't my phone number, it was theirs, and something that they missed, and so that one was very painful. So is everybody kind of, who's ever had their own business or runs, there's those little things that kind of can cost you greatly sometimes, that you just kind of forget. So I try to, this book is it's kind of like, when pilots enter the cockpit, they've got that checklist. One person reads it, the other person checks it. It's kind of, it's a checklist like that people, from beginning to end of a project, they can go through and sort of say, "Oh, is this little thing done, that little thing done?" Because it adds up, you know.
While most of my listeners are drivers or contractors,
Yep.
I was in my corporate life, I was in printing for 19 years, and we got to a point where you had to have them check off on everything.
Yep.
And I don't mean everything, but Well, I guess I do mean everything. We do it
Yeah.
and we get
Yep.
back to them. Hey, is this right? Yep. And then
Yep.
we didn't move forward to someone said it was right and it wasn't us.
Yep.
You
Well,
approved it, got your initials, we're going
yep.
on.
Yep. And
And
even like when you're talking about the contractors being like, even all those, here's a big thing is never assume, always document, like it always, it's always beneficial to almost like over communicate, yeah, for your contractors in like, in, for instance, like taking photos or something, or giving them more content to sign off on, or sort of
mhm,
say, hey, is this the right color, in like also too in person, or getting like, when I say over communicate, just make sure all of the things that you're doing, or with your business, or even in your communication with your, with your client, it's just better to kind of put it all in writing. And when in doubt, take photos of it. Like, is this the right spec? Is this the right size? Like, just document everything. And that's one of the biggest, I think we kind of rush through things. And again, that documentation, the sign off, it has that paper trail, so that all of a sudden that room extension, it's instead of 120 feet, it's 100, they make it 12.
yeah.
We've all seen those really dumb mistakes where there's.
Change
Yep.
orders are the worst because you're on the fly.
Yep.
Get change orders signed off on. Make sure everybody understands the cost involved. Had actually a couple weeks ago had we started a job, and we had actually done work for the gentleman's son, and he said, Chris, we're going to use you. I don't
Yep.
even need a quote. I said, no, no, no. We're gonna
Yeah.
no,
Yep.
you're gonna see what it's gonna cost
Yep.
before I start anything. And we were all on the same page.
Yep.
And but
Contracts, and 100%, like that's with any, like that's one of the, I guess that's there's a few different points with, make sure you itemize it all out and understand, like have them know what that all is, because like you itemize every little thing out, because again, going back to the over communication of it, just document every little thing that you have, because yeah, for instance, like if yeah, it could cost you a lot. And then next thing you know, the bill's high, and the client's like, well, I only expected or assumed it was going to be 10 grand. And you're like, well, no, it's actually 50 grand, because why would you assume anything would cost us? Because I, not that I ever assume, everybody's very busy, but a lot of people, it's just, people don't read things anymore, and that's another really big thing. People don't pay attention. And this is, in protection of yourself, everything else, and people trying to rush to get things done. It is best to have everything documented in writing. That way, someone's like, hey, I didn't say that. And you're like, you said that. Actually, one of the key things in my book is that, um, what platforms you communicate on as well. Like, I limit it with my clients, because I only do it, like, you can message me in WhatsApp or Facebook, or just even in text. But I'm like,
yeah,
if you're going to message me something in business, like something business wise, where it's, it's business conversation, I will cut and paste that from my text conversation. I'll paste that into my email and
put
email
it in
them.
an
That way
email.
there's that
Yep.
chain. And that's, again, it's things get lost in text, things get, or any kind of other platform, any social platform, they get lost. And there's
So
no
many
real
places.
itemization of that. You can't search it or anything else, and that's protection. Like, it just from a communication, yeah, it's big. So
Now
yeah.
now we have software, Project HQ, and everything goes to well, they can text, they can email, they can even messenger. It all goes through the software,
Hmm.
and the software is linked with it. So you got it in one spot. That's a benefit.
Yep.
But we're talking about on my custom homes. I'll tell a client, I said, go to the store, and
Hmm.
preferably I send them to Lowe's. That's just because that's close. I said, go to Lowe's, and I want paint color, but I don't want the color. I want that number.
Yep.
I don't care what the color's called. I just want to know who made
Yep.
it. I want that card, and you can send it to me or
Yep.
whatever you do, or take a picture of it, but send me that card.
Yep.
And then also we do a lot of pole barns, and a lot of barns have a lot of metal. I'll
Yep.
take that color chart, and
Yeah.
I'll say, "Well, I want a green." You say, "No, no, no. There's all kinds of green."
That's, yep.
You point, and I've taken a picture of them pointing to to the color, and I've taken a picture. It's like that's the one you chose.
100%. And it is almost, it's kind of like your insurance policy. It's like your insurance policy against it. It's like, sort of like, it is your it's proof in your backing. And I gotta say, like, when clients, and one of the things that for a lot of clients maybe are kind of loose with communication, one of the reasons they also that give me referrals is because of the amount of communication that I have, the detail that I go into when it comes to projects. They love that. Like, even though they're not like, again, this is not a lot of what they do. Like, a lot of clients aren't into building and they don't understand,
Right.
when they say green, they just think there's one or two greens out there when really, there's probably a large, and also too the types of paint, I'm sure the different, not the actual makeup of the paint, how long it lasts, all those little signs, like all those differentiators. But one of the things that I found too is like the more detailed I am with the client of nailing, like just getting all the specifics like bang on, they love that, because that's always been a big thing of referrals as well, is when people are like, hey, we love using you because you are so detailed. And they like that. And that's something where I've gotten a lot of like referrals just because, everything's documented, everything, they know, like I'm also too spending as much energy into this project that they might be as well. And I'm focused on making sure the product's really great and, it meets, if not exceeds, your expectations. Right. So that's key.
So, to my listeners, you might find clients that don't like that too, and that's okay. If you need the information, you're covering yourself.
Yep.
And if they get to a point where they say, "That's just I don't have time to answer all your questions," well, then maybe you don't have time to work with me, because
Yeah.
you got to make sure. Because if they don't have time to that, I bet you they have time to bitch at you when it's gone wrong. I
Yep.
guarantee you. And
Yep.
paint's an awful one. Paint, because you're in the store, and I was in printing, and you've been in printing.
Yep.
Lights make colors look different, and
100%.
you can't imagine how many times that they get a paint color at the store and they get it home, and the lady puts it. I'm not talking about ladies, but ladies usually the ones picking the color out. They put
Yep.
it on the wall, and it looks different.
Yep.
And I recommend, they don't all do it, but recommend, if you can get a color swatch, not even a swatch, actually, you can buy little pints of
Yep.
paint. They'll
Yeah.
make
The
it for you.
samples. Yep.
Take it home, put it
Yep.
on, put it on their wall, make sure they're happy with it,
Yep.
and then and they know that really they're not as disappointed about it as you are. And if
And
you,
that's the I've got a quote that we used to work. I'm sure you've heard this many times in printing, but you can't be more correct. And I think there's always a lot of clients out there, and for you to do your best work, make sure you have clients that are willing to meet you like in the middle, like you said, with you're saying, hey, just take this home, spend a day with it, or take it over the weekend, and we'll talk about it on Monday. If clients are in a rush to be like, no, I need this done now, it's probably not going to be, it depends what your risk factor is for doing it with this client. Like, are they high or low risk? Because, is it the chance of it working out, you're threading a very fine line there if it's something they're going to be happy with. Because if they don't like that color, well, now they're like, hey, this is not the color I picked. And you're like, well, this is it. But they're like, hey, it looked different in the store. I need to paint it another color. Who's going to cover the cost of repainting and bitching and doing?
amen.
And again, hey, that's energy and that's time that you're not working on your business or another client.
Working on
And
another client,
that's your
exactly.
energy that you're expending with this person who didn't have the time to take their own time to make sure they do it right, or they're just making sure that it's the correct thing. And a quote that in my first agency job, a quote that we'd always use is that with clients, is that there's never enough time to do it right. There's always enough time to do it again. And what that means is that I remember when we were printing brochures, a client will need it, they were in a rush to do it, to get everything, on a Friday, or let's say like where the deadline was Friday. So they were rushing all week long to make sure that it was printed and delivered on Friday, only to find that there's a mistake in it. And then, of
Hmm.
course, we had to print it again. So, there's never enough time to double check and make sure it's right. But hey, it's okay. Well, then, and else too, it puts stress on the entire team. And here's another sort of like unspoken thing, all that when you put the decisions on yourself, that's a lot of stress on you when you're guessing and you're sort of having to maybe stress about that risk that you're taking. Like, when clients rush through things, there's a certain, if there's no danger pay involved or extra pay involved, it puts a lot of stress on the team and yourself just to kind of get it done, just because of sometimes a false deadline, or they just wanted it done to do it. And that for us was always really tough, because all of a sudden, we're rushing, we're staying late to do things, only for them to be, oh, it's okay, let's reprint this and let's deliver it, it's okay for next Wednesday. So all those late nights and everything else just to make sure something was done on time. when really it was just a soft deadline. But the stress, and again, the mistakes were made when they didn't need to be, right? So
If you guys identify a client that's going to be that way, make sure you bid it properly the first time, because typically how it works is you mark something up, get your margin in place, and your margin is based on throughput. Move a crew from here to there to keep going. And like you said, yeah, you can make a lot of money on change orders.
yeah.
It really is because you're going to mark it up. Don't get me wrong, but you're not as efficient with change orders because you're holding up another job because your crews can't go on. Yeah, they can stay there and they can fix it, and you're going to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more of the frustration, not only for you, but your crews
Yep.
and the next guy your next client down the road, because you're holding them up because you can't move the crew over there until you're done with this one. So there's a market out there for that. Don't get me wrong. There's people who have
Yep.
plenty of money, who have plenty of time,
Yep.
who have they want it their way, which is fine. Just make
Yep.
sure if you find those type of clients that you prepare in advance. And because
Yeah.
really, it's not about the money for them.
No.
It's not about the cost.
No.
And I'm not saying gouge them, but I'm saying
Yep.
prepare to cover yourself with that type of client, and knowing that it's not an in and out type of thing.
And
And
like you were saying before, even documenting and quoting something out, when you put something in writing, it also changes, one's frame of mind, because all those change orders, or my good friend of mine's a contractor, so he'll do one room or he'll do something, and then he's like, okay, I've got to move to the next job. They're like, no, I need you to stay here and do this,
yeah,
and then, oh, no, I need to. So yeah, it's holding that up. But what was a game changer for him was, like, you with the client, you make a list being like, here is project number 1. Do you need anything else? Okay, then okay. And then walking with them being like, okay, is there anything, as you're writing the quote, as you're writing the proposal, being like, what else might you need? And one of the tricks that we also use too, in saying like, being like, if I have to come back, or if there's any changes, it's more expensive for me to come back or for me to change than if I were to add it all into this, if we could do it all at once in this group. So is there anything else that you need? Because I'll do it again. I'll do it right now. I'll do it efficiently, but also it's stopped from those change orders. So just, when you put it in writing, and just ask them, is there anything else that you might need? Because if I have to come back, you're going to be charged, a little bit more if I have to come back and set up and do all that stuff again. And that's a big thing.
I've seen contractors. Now, thank the Lord I don't have one, don't need one, but maybe someday. But there's a cleanup crew, and what
Yep.
I mean is they're jack of all trades.
Yep.
So your main crews who might do framing and so forth, but they can get in, get out, and go on to the next job.
Yep.
But if somebody changes their mind, you send the cleanup crew in, and then they do and it's not as big a crew.
Yep.
There might be 2 or 3 guys versus the 6 guys you got framing,
Yeah.
because they can go on to the next job. But they can come in and do that stuff. They're not pressed as much
Yeah.
as the first crew, and that allows. And from a customer point of view, they see people come and work on their house, and that's really what they want to see, something
Yeah.
happening.
Yep.
And that crew can be charged more, because they're
Yep.
doing the change order stuff, and you can take their time and make
Yep.
sure the client's happy. I mentioned earlier, today I went to a funeral, and we
Yeah.
just had me stand at the funeral, and it's a good funeral. Everybody's happy, celebration of life. And
Yeah.
we're talking, and we have to talk about business and get talking about that. And they said, well, they're telling stories. And there's a lady that called her contractor. Well, the contractor worked for her husband at the job site.
Yeah.
And she calls the contractor and says, hey, I need a couple guys at the house. He goes, okay. So he sent a couple guys over to the house
Yeah.
to do something, which ended up to be like 4 or 5 different things. And finally they said, well, ma'am, do you understand what we get paid an hour? She goes, I don't care what you get paid an hour. I need this done.
Mm-hmm.
And those type of people, which is great. That's
Yep.
great for sales.
it definitely is.
It's not about the money. They want it done and want it done now. So if you're going to, my point being is, if you're going to have a service like that, make sure you have guys that are available to take their time, not stress about having to be somewhere else, and they'll do it right the first time. So
yeah, and it's a different kind of service, right? Just
yes.
Also to get that in, it's just like segmented out, so it's not just you in that lane, because that's, like you said, that person. Yeah, and I've always found it different too, working with companies. Again, probably, an example you just used is like working for her husband, which is probably, working for a company versus working for a person or a family, working on a company or a home. where I found like when you do industrial or commercial based stuff, there's so much more like, for me, the larger the company, the more detailed they are, the more sort of like process oriented they are. Whereas working with, the smaller, like like the woman who has no idea the time it would take or the amount of hours. So hence that's tricky. If she doesn't, like, you're very lucky that she doesn't care. But if you find, for the most part, a lot of people who do care how many hours and they
Hmm.
don't ask up front and you don't
Oh
tell
yeah.
them up front, then
And
all of
then
a
they
sudden
get
they're
the
asking for
bill,
all
they're
these things
freaking
that
out.
are, yeah. The next thing you know, it's, you're, with a crew, you're 30 hours into something at $200. And I don't know how much they are an hour, but what's an average rate of,
Around here, that was the example today was 125.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
It adds up
Well,
fast. And yeah.
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 And it depends on who it is too. I mean, I'll digress a little bit. We had a guy. I was at his place. We were remodeling his. He bought a house and he's going to have us build another house, but we're remodeling the old house, be the hunting cabin. And he bought a John Deere tractor, and something went wrong with it. I mean, like 2 weeks old, and something went wrong with it.
Yep.
And it was used. Well, actually, I think it's going to come under warranty, but minimum was $400 just to have those guys go out there to look at the tractor,
Yeah. Yep.
and then $200 an hour after that, just whatever it is to fix it.
Yeah.
Now, John Deere's going to cover it and all that good stuff, but that's the point. Like, it's still
Yep.
expensive.
Yep.
I want to shift gears a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to move on. I have a note here that you help people you see and build extraordinary.
Yeah.
Are you helping them extraordinary in their business in general? Is that what you're referring to, or just whatever they need? You help them see a different. Are you looking through a different set of glasses or a different window?
Yeah, great question. And thanks for pulling that out. I think, um, I'll answer maybe this in two different ways. I think a
Okay.
lot of people have really big ideas, but not really sure how to get there. And when I say, oh, sorry, when you have a company, you have this big idea of what you want to grow it into, and sometimes you're never really sure what that path might look like, or what those steps are to get there. And part of that is kind of seeing ones, with kind of growth strategy, with marketing and things like that, or even the brand. It's in brand building. It is about figuring out, how to build the company, the brand, the messaging that will get you to where you want to be. Whether or not that be to build a big enough company where you sell it to someone else, or you take a step into building your own. You start doing your own developments and things like that. But we like talking to startups and entrepreneurs, being like, what's your game plan? Like, where do you want to be? How can we build that for you? Which is different than some marketers and designers, because they like just making nice stuff. But I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I love building, like, I love the whole business of entrepreneurism, of like, building, like taking an idea and bringing it to reality.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I found over my many years, also thinking about this and building, is that, people can make bigger, riskier decisions when they have more information and more insight. It's kind of like when when you're first riding your BMX, and you make a little jump, and you're like, oh, that kind of worked, and then you raise it a couple more bricks and you jump off.
Hmm.
So when they have a feeling, and they have an understanding of how things work, and they understand, just the bigger picture, or they have more insights, into process, into their company, they can start taking, I don't want to say, let's say, call them calculated risks, and in that, a lot of companies who don't do those, don't sort of ascertain, you know, um, uh, basically competitive analysis, like who are the key competitors, in their field, and in the area, who are their key clients, doing that deep analysis and deep research, and figuring out, like, those are the key drivers of any industry, of any business. And I think in finding those out, you can then sort of figure out where you fit, so that you can then, you know sort of create a bigger, more bolder, more extraordinary kind of message in that, because you're now confident, because you're like, oh, here's where I fit in the industry, and I can fit between, the small homes and the bigger developers. Like, this is my lane, and I know that there is probably a 20 or 30% market share of that in this lane, and there's only two other people in this lane. So for me to do this, I can be a little bit, I can be a little bolder. I can be a little bit more riskier in my marketing. Riskier, being stepping out of the box a little bit more, and that's, and when you do that, marketing is about like that being memorable and being able to kind of stand out in the box, like just being, and not sort of like just following the crowd or blending in. So when you have that research and that insight, you can make those bigger plays. Another analogy I use is usually the football, the football analogy, where if you understand, if you're an offense, you understand how the defense moves and basically how they're lined up, play after play, and they usually do this. If you know that, you can now sort of say, hey, listen, I'm not going to go for another running play. I'm going to throw this down the field 50 yards, right? So you can then sort of say, based on all the information that I know, based on how they've moved, how it worked for the last, 20 plays, we can now make a decision to go bigger, longer, stronger in that. So that's that kind of like being extraordinary is like helping those people see that by helping them stand out further. And that's really a key thing for anybody, any of your listeners, is that make sure you have that market research of who your key clients are, who your key competition is, what the market looks like, what's the market segmentation look like for you. And it's just, if they don't know that, I would say, it's key, because here's another thing, Chris, is like, if you just going back to that lady example before, is that those jobs are great, but if you're sometimes if you're always constantly doing the same work again and again, you got the same clients again and again, and it's sometimes, if you like that, that's great, but if you have bigger aspirations, sometimes being in that, it's hard to like that, make that leap out of it if you're always constantly busy with that one client group. So in that, looking at like hiring a crew to do some of that smaller stuff, so then you can then you can activate, you can go and build that other business, right? So looking at, and me and my partners, that's something that we kind of do, being like, hey, if you were to bring on, one person a week, what would this cost? What do you need to make? Again, that comes down to that growth strategy. So marketing should be a balance of like growth strategy, of understanding, what to do to get to where you want to be, and then actually messaging and putting it out there with your brand and all the sort of, all the materials that you have going on out there. So that's kind of a long answer to your, what makes people extraordinary, but that's, that's key. But knowing how to, we always remember the athletes who make those extraordinary plays because they're the bold, big ones, and they took those risks, as I say, like they know the limit of what they can do, and they just push it just a little bit further, but they land big, right? So that's kind of, we like to help clients walk them through that process of figuring out where their edges of risk are, to kind of like, make sure we can kind of help make those big plays for them.
Well, this ties well into my next question, I believe, because you help your clients, and it might be in the book too, but find their unique competitive edge.
Yep.
And you have a process of the C5.
Yep.
Is that in the book?
It is not. It's I wish it was.
Okay.
The
Write
book.
me another book, will you?
Yeah. the book is it's very rich, but also very high level. So it's almost like making sure here's a high level checklist. Here's this was one of those dilemmas that I kind of did when writing it, is like, I know most entrepreneurs and small businesses, they're trapped for time, and they have to wear so many hats. So let me kind of give them as much information I can for a specific topic right then and there, and not just information, but hey, what tools do I use? What's industry standard? Like really give them kind of like a peek behind the curtain of like, if I were to do this, this is exactly, here's the steps I would take, using my 25 years of experience. I've boiled it down, and here's the best way I found to do this. And then also, to each one of the blind spots each one of the insights has a blind spot, which is like, if you don't do this, this is what might happen. So what are the consequences if you don't, like, for instance, you don't get that sign off or whatever else. So go back to your question. The C5 is a very deep, like, we're opening up the hood, we're taking the engine out of the block, like we're taking the engine out of the car, we're taking it apart and really looking at it. And for a lot of entrepreneurs and startups, like it got way too, it's they need to do it, but it's to try to explain how it works, you almost need someone to kind of walk them through that. But it is listed out there of what you should need and understand. In the book, I give a few examples of, like on the page of like the know your competitors or know your customers, like give you probably like 30 different things that you should know about your customer, like from their lifestyle to their values or personality, the household size or what city, like all the small things. So
Hmm.
I do give examples of what they should know, just so that from the your customers, your competitors, and know what your messaging is. So there are examples in there. It doesn't go that deep, but I figure a lot of people, I do iterate in the book, being like, find an agency, find someone who gets what you need to do, and who will follow these for you, because it's there's a lot of agencies out there, but find someone who will help you work that out, or in your industry, like who knows your industry, who does marketing, or so that can help you really work that out. But the C5 is key, and I can't iterate enough too, like it's do the research, just get some insights. But I will say I am working on a tool. It's AI based to help people with to help with that research, because now with, I don't know if everybody's used ChatGPT or anything else like that.
Oh
It
yeah.
is a phenomenal research tool, because you can essentially, for instance, you can say who are the contractors within, who are the 1 to 5 team contractors within 15 miles of
15,
where I
yeah.
am, and it can tell you. And then can you do those websites, and can you let me, like, what is each one's kind of competitive advantage across each one, so it can help you kind of distill some of that. So we're working actually on a tool for that, to make it even simpler, because time is money for entrepreneurs, and it's just something where we're trying to pack as much value and understanding so they can make those decisions quicker and faster. They can make the right ones, and then kind of move on to the next thing that they got to do, because there's a lot of, as I say, there's a lot of spinning plates, a lot of, you got to keep a lot of spinning plates up when you're an entrepreneur. So there's a lot of things to cover and do, and emails to respond to, calls to call back, and things to do, right? So
That's
yeah.
right. And we talk about, I talk about delegating. If you don't enjoy marketing or understand it,
Yep.
either hire somebody to do it internally or hire somebody externally to do it. And external, I think, almost better, because they're bigger teams usually and
Yep.
have more experiences and so forth. So, how would somebody reach out to you, Brady, if they wanted to talk further about C5 and anything else?
Yeah. And it's can I just I'm gonna add one kind of a key important thing, because this is also too in
No,
the
go
book,
right
is
ahead.
that when you're finding a marketing company, and this is one of the big things that this came up again and again with a lot of people, is that
Hmm.
there's a lot of juniors that are out there. So the industry is, there's a lot of freelancers, a lot of juniors in our industry. I'm sure exactly like contractors, like in the building industry, there's guys
Oh
that
yeah,
can barely swing a hammer. That
they can sell their ass off.
yeah. So find, like, there's a lot of agencies, a lot of businesses out there. Um, Take your time in finding the right one for you. And one of the things I suggest is, like, when you're again, we talked about even referrals, everything else. So like, oh, I had Bob or so and so do this for me.
Right.
They work, but um, go through the same interview process when hiring a marketing agency or branding or web agency that you would, if you were hiring your own employee. Because hiring employees is different, because you've got to put it on
Oh yeah.
payroll. There's a bigger responsibility, and I'd say just take the time in hiring someone, finding them, and don't be afraid to kind of interview a few of them. Like, take the time and do that, because it will pay exponentially on the back end, just like hiring a good
Absolutely.
employee. Take the
Hmm.
time. Like, it depends. You want to, do you just want someone to move dirt back and forth off a job site around, or do you need someone that's going to be competent, that knows how to frame properly, and, and
Yeah.
knows what a T square, a set square looks like. It's all those things that, so you're going to get, like, take the time, find someone right, because it's going to pay off, exponentially in the back end, when, it's not just, it's competence, but it's energy. Energy as they've got to they've got to be like you, as like someone that you would want to work with. So when I say energy, it's someone you get along with. But take your time, hire the right person, because hopefully you'll be with them and they'll be with you for years. Because I've got clients dating back like 15 years that, we still, they call me up, and it's a quick and easy fix or to do, and it's just they're family now, right? It's sort of whatever they got, and that's something where, this is an industry where you can have creative contractors for years and years, because as you grow, you want to find someone that's going to see your vision and grow with you. So
Absolutely.
that's I put a lot of weight into that as well. Just because we're both kind of in the same industry, same thing, where there's a lot of juniors, a lot of people, on the ground level just want to get some experience, but it's about finding that right person that's kind of have that right mindset of, and intelligence,
And
So,
a good agency will want to make sure that you're the right fit for them as well.
yep, it goes both ways, 100%. So to answer your other question, where they can find me and everything else, the best place and place I'm most active is on LinkedIn, because I mentor people there. People message me. Again, this is something where I've put it out there where if they have any issues with contractors, they have any questions about marketing or branding, they can reach out to me right there with, they can connect with me on LinkedIn, and message me right there. That's probably the best. And it's Brady. You can find me. It's just Brady Dahmer, Brady like Tom, and Dahmer like Jeffrey. And then, yep, I know
Tastes like chicken.
yeah. So Brady Dahmer on LinkedIn, and then they can get a copy of the book at blindspotshandbook.com. And that's something, if you're starting out, this is the book I wish I had when I was starting out, because it just it would have saved me a lot of time, money, and effort, and just energy, in doing things and not having to work through things. So it's that's the two best places. And if you have any questions, like I love doing this. I love sharing my experience and helping people get the most out of their marketing experience and their brand experience. So so feel free to reach out.
Awesome. We'll put those links at the bottom of the show notes for LinkedIn and the book. Also, if you found something you want to talk about with me, we can talk about leadership. We can talk about marketing and how to go find that right marketing agent. I'm not the marketing agent by no means. I hire that stuff out, and so should you. So you can link in the bottom there and set up a time to consult with me for free, or also in the group, join our Facebook group, Hard Hat CEO, and we'll be happy to show you a few things that you might not get out not being in the group. So thank you very much, Brady. It's been great.
Chris, absolutely. Thank you so much. Great questions, by the way. Love the podcast. Really